I'm Jason Sipe, and this is the Indiana Libertarian Update for the week of February 27th, 2017. The LPIN State Convention is coming up in just a few months, and we can look forward to guest speaker and LP Vice Chair Arvin Vohra joining us in Evansville. But if you want to know more about Arvin, we spoke to him recently about his role with the LP, his work in education, and what you can expect at the state convention. We've got that in just a few moments, but first let's check on libertarian news and events from around the state of Indiana. Not a lot going on in the way of news, but we have a lot of events, so let's go ahead and jump in on those. Today, February 27th, you can join the Boone County Libertarians at Books and Brews in Zionsville. That's going to be running from 6:30 to 7:30. This is their monthly meeting. If you've not had a chance to stop in and see the folks from the Boone County Libertarians up on the northwest side of central Indiana, be sure to do so. Our friends over at the America's Future Foundation, which includes several prominent libertarians, are going to be hosting an event on the 28th. That is Tuesday of this week at Liberty Street. That runs from 6:30 to 8 p.m. You can learn about Ball State's Schneider Institute with economist Steve Horvitz. If you want to learn more about economics and what's going on over in Muncie at the Ball State campus, be sure to stop in and visit our friends over at Liberty Street with America's Future Foundation. That's on Tuesday, February 28th. The Unitarian Universalist Church of Bloomington, in conjunction with Matt Pierce, a State House representative, they're going to be hosting an event on Wednesday of this week called How to Talk So Your Legislators Will Listen. If you'd like to be more effective in communicating with your representatives at the State House, be sure to get there. And again, this is Wednesday at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Bloomington at 6 p.m. Wednesday, Bloomington is the place to be. The folks at Against Prohibition will be hosting a rally on March 1st. Resist Trump's marijuana overreach. If you did not hear or did not get the message from the opening meme, the White House has indicated we can look forward to increased enforcement of marijuana and anti-cannabis legislation. So the folks on the campus of IU are going to be hosting this event at Woodburn Hall. That's Wednesday from 7 to 10 p.m. Okay, if you're down in the Columbus area, be sure to get to Liberty Brews. This is not a business meeting. This is a social event, a chance for you to get together with other libertarians at Powerhouse Brewing Company there in Columbus, Indiana. That happens on Friday from 7 to 10 p.m., and that's sponsored by our friends at the Libertarian Party of Bartholomew County, Indiana. The Libertarian Party of Morgan County will be having their monthly meeting. That happens on March 9th, so that's going to be happening next week from 6:30 to 9:30 p.m. at Ralph and Ava's Cafe and Catering in downtown Mooresville. I hear that it's quite a tasty place to visit. And again, that's next Tuesday from 6:30 to 9 p.m. and brought to you by the Libertarian Party of Morgan County. It's a meet and greet right there in beautiful Mooresville, Indiana. The Libertarian Party of Lake County up in the region is going to be having their annual convention and officer elections. That'll be happening a little later in the month on March 16th, Thursday, March 16th at Houlihan's in Cherville. That is on Highway 41, so if you're up in the northern part of the state and want to see one of the best organized, most active county affiliates, be sure to get up and visit the folks at the Libertarian Party of Lake County for their annual convention and officer elections on Thursday, March 16th. Now, this is kind of a fun event, and I'm glad to see the folks at the Libertarian Party of Allen County taking advantage of this. On Friday, March 17th, that's St. Patrick's Day, the Libertarians will be in the St. Pat's Parade at the Deer Park Pub. I believe this is dubbed the world's smallest St. Patrick's Day parade, but don't you know it, the Libertarians will be represented. This happens at the Deer Park Irish Pub in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and that's supposed to be happening shortly after 4:30. I think they're getting together at 4:30, and the actual march time is like 5. But it's a small march. So if you're interested, get out and help our folks up there at Fort Wayne. The Libertarian Party of Monroe County is going to be having their county convention. That's going to be happening at the Tailored Fit there in Bloomington from 4 to 6 p.m. And again, that's on Saturday, March 25th from 4 to 6 p.m. The Libertarian Party of Monroe County will be having their 2017 convention. Alrighty, and that brings us here to Indianapolis for April 1st. It's April's Fool's Day. And it's also the 2017 Libertarian Party of Marion County Convention. That's going to be happening at the Irvington Branch Library. They are on the near east side of Indianapolis from 1:30 to 3 p.m. and tickets are available. You can find all that information on the Facebook page. Of course, the big event that we're talking about and kind of relevant to our interview today, the 2017 LPIN State Convention. That's going to be happening in Evansville, Indiana. So if you haven't put that in ink, now's the time to do so. Okay, thanks so much to all the folks who took the time to sit. Now, the Libertarian Party is led by a group of talented and committed individuals, or perhaps talented individuals who should be committed. Any way you look at it, this week's guest is part of a team that continues to lead the LP through exciting and promising times. Here's this week's interview with Arvin Vohra. Well, hello, and thank you so much for joining us for today's interview with Arvin Vohra. Arvin is best known as the vice chair of the National Libertarian Party. You'll also see him comment heavily on education, but perhaps most importantly, for those of us here at the Indiana Libertarian Update, he is one of our featured guests for the state convention in Evansville in early May. So with that much in mind, we wanted to bring Arvin in to have a chance for you to get to know him, find out a little more about what he does with the Libertarian Party and what we can expect in the month of May. So Arvin, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I've been involved heavily in the Libertarian movement since about 2010. That was the first time that I actually ran for office. I've run for office several times since then. Joined the Libertarian National Committee in 2012, I think. Yeah, 2012 as representative at large. 2014 I was elected vice chair, and then 2016 I was reelected vice chair. And in my time I've worked on everything from social media to just overall strategy, candidate training, acting as a spokesman for the party. I've been interviewed by many different media outlets. And so my job is really to try to get that libertarian message out there to as many different individuals, many different groups as I possibly can in a way that it resonates with them.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I'm always so pleased to see those familiar faces when I'm clicking through the channels. And I know I've come across you a few times on RT and some other venues being interviewed, and you do very good work there. So, is there an actual official description for what the vice chair of the Libertarian Party does in our bylaws?
The job of the vice chair is, kind of like the job of the vice president, is less very specifically defined. I mean, there's certain specific roles. For example, the vice chair is the regional representative of any regionless states. The vice chair steps in to run meetings when the chair needs to step out or wants to discuss a particular issue. So, for example, you can't run a meeting and comment and debate within the meeting at the same time. So those are some of the official jobs, but the unofficial role of the vice chair, which for me has become a larger part of the role, is to really act as a spokesperson, to speak to different groups, to speak to media, to explain to them, why is it good for us to, for example, get the government out of education? Why should we end the drug war? Why should we bring the troops home? How do we benefit when we get rid of some of these government agencies? Why is private sector retirement better than something like Social Security? And that's really where a lot of my work has been over the last several years.
Fantastic. And we do see you being effective at that. When you think about getting that message out, have you found any avenues more receptive than others when it comes to spreading the message of libertarianism?
Yeah. I mean, the libertarianism is it's a very popular message among younger people right now. There's no question about that. It's partially that younger people are a little bit more open-minded, you could say, these days. For example, we have many folks in college that are just debating about things that most people kind of take for granted. Most people sort of have taken for granted for many years that there's essentially two genders. But right now there's a debate. Well, are there 5? Are there 50? And so that whatever your position on that is, it at least lets you know that people are willing to listen to ideas that they might previously be unfamiliar with. And so because of that receptiveness, a message that shows, here's how, for example, ending the minimum wage benefits young people and benefits older people. That type of message, it's easier to get that message across, I think.
Absolutely. Now, one of the things that we saw in 2016 was that many young people balked at traditional
Hmm.
parties. How how has it? How can we tailor our message to best appeal to those folks who see through those younger folks who see through the lie of the two-party system?
I think it's really important to not pander. I mean, it's really, really important to not talk down to people, to just to explain to them the answer to the questions. So for example, sometimes younger voters will ask, why should I even bother voting for a libertarian candidate that has a very low chance of winning an election? Why should I vote for Gary Johnson when his chances of winning are much lower? And we can there's all kinds of sort of ways to deflect the question, but what I found has worked best for me at least is to just answer the question directly, to say, listen, politics is playing chess. It's not playing checkers. And a big part of playing politics as chess is getting that message out there to a large number of people. Recognizing that even if your candidate doesn't win this round, it may change the policies next round. Even in Virginia, for example, which is, traditionally a more conservative state, both the Democratic and Republican governor candidate this year are talking about decriminalizing marijuana. A lot of that, in my opinion, has to do with Rob Sarvis, a few years ago, talking about the same issue. And so, when you speak frankly, when you don't pretend that somebody can't handle a complex idea, and when you understand, when you allow people to embrace a full complexity of what politics actually is, I think that really that I found has been a much more effective approach than trying to kind of sugarcoat or tone down the actual message.
Interesting information there. Now, looking back on 2016, what did we do right? What did we do wrong?
I think we did a lot of things right, honestly. I mean, I think we got a lot more media coverage than we ever have before. I think that we were good about getting the clear libertarian message out there. I think that a lot of people now understand that, libertarians want to end the war on drugs. Libertarians want to bring the troops home. Libertarians want to get rid of things like the minimum wage that get in the way of employment. Libertarians, a lot of people now understand what libertarians want to do, and also a lot of people understand, why that's good. Why are those things beneficial? Why is it good to end the war on drugs, even if you don't use drugs? For example, getting rid of violence, allowing drug businesses to settle disputes in court. Why is ending the minimum wage good? So people are understanding that more than before. What could we have done better? I mean, there's a if you can go through any single part of anything and find ways to improve, and in fact, that is what we're doing. We're saying, how could we have done better on the media strategy, or how could the social media strategy have been different? Hindsight, as they say, is 2020, and it's showing us a lot of things that we can do maybe a little bit more effectively in 2020. One thing that I would personally recommend is, I think that we waited too long to start the presidential debates. I think that we should have started the presidential debates much, much earlier, allowed that excitement to build up. I think we should have started our presidential debates before the Republicans and Democrats started their inter-party presidential debates. So that would be something that I'll be pushing for certainly in 2020.
That's a fantastic idea. You certainly have a grasp on communications. One of the things that I'm sensing at the moment, and for that matter, even the existence of the Indiana Libertarian Update, represents a shift from the traditional institutions of media to social media and things of this nature. What's your take on the landscape of information at this point? And maybe a second part of that question is, should we be emphasizing our access to traditional media, or should we be looking to trailblaze new avenues in media?
I think that if we look at what's actually been, effective over the last years, we've seen that really taking control of our media outreach has made a humongous difference. In 2016, we kind of lucked out and we got a lot of traditional media coverage for Gary Johnson, and that was fantastic. But the fact is that a lot of the media coverage that we've gotten for our candidates locally, statewide, etc., has come from our social media avenues. Because we have such a massive reach now on social media, something that's many times the size of what it was before, both in terms of, number of likes and, number of users and the weekly reach. At this point, our internal media is on par with a major newspaper. Not on par with the biggest newspapers in the country yet, but it's on par with a major newspaper. And because of that, we are now able to do so much more than we were able to do before. So I really think that focusing on our own media is a huge advantage. That said, a big part of what we've been doing in addition to that is doing more press releases in a timely fashion, jumping on to stories that exist, giving media a reason and an opportunity to cover us. A lot of times there's people in the media who want to cover us. They're just waiting for us to say something on an issue that's going on right now. So there's been major improvements in that. I mean, the staff has been incredible in terms of their speed and responsiveness and really getting those press releases out there the second something hits, and it has made a very, very significant difference in our media coverage.
Yes, and we've certainly seen that on the local level here in Indiana. When we have the resources to put together press releases and be responsive to those things going on at the State House or at the City County Council and places like that, we will often see that coverage. Now, this kind of brings up, and I mentioned this in that statement, the resource issue. And it's not necessarily cash resources. Yes, money makes the world go round, but one of the things that we struggle with is finding the people to take on these roles. And oftentimes it's the reverse, where people want to volunteer, but we don't know how to connect them. Do you have any thoughts on resource allocation?
Yeah, there's a few different things. I mean, you have to always remember what is going to bring the biggest coverage. I mean, I think it's good to actually think about that. It even kind of ties into the last one. What really brings the biggest coverage to any party is going to be the candidates. So when it comes to resource allocation, a big thing that at least I try to do is really encourage individual people to run for office, because the amount of media coverage you get just by running for office is going to be at least equivalent to at least a year's worth of very constant social media work. So there is that part. The other thing is it's important for state parties, for national parties, to really kind of have a wide variety of pre-existing roles for people to fill, even if they're not filled. To say, we need someone to coordinate this, we need somebody to do this, and then when people ask, what can I do? You can say, here's the list of things that we're looking for right now, and if that list is big enough, and you give people that agency to kind of pick what they want to do, I think it can really make a big difference. We've seen that in our social media teams, which have so many so many volunteers. Some who work, who'll contribute once every month, and some that do stuff many times a day. It's just having that ability to do things is really a big difference. If you give somebody just a role, they're often, especially libertarians, they're going to take it to that next level on their own.
Before we shift gears and talk a little bit about your work outside of politics specifically, one of the questions I've been asking a lot of our guests here on Indiana Libertarian Update regards running for office. I've been on both sides of the issue. I myself have been a paper candidate and have worked to fill our ballots here in the Indianapolis area and other parts of the state. But I'm also kind of shifting gears myself, and I'm beginning to think that maybe it's time to take more of a targeted approach. Do you have any thoughts on that debate when it comes to running candidates? Should we fill the ballot, or should we try to focus on a handful of serious, engaged candidates?
That's a really good question, and it is definitely obviously a very central topic that's going on in strategy circles in different states. There is a major advantage to having people run for office who are at least willing to fill out questionnaires, because that means, I mean, if you think about the amount of free media coverage that a state level candidate gets, it's usually the tens, or sometimes, if depending on the state, even the hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of free media coverage, and that is huge. A lot of times in Maryland, many people have said, even I've said, if you run for office, I'll do your questionnaires. It's fine with me. So I think that's really, really big. The other thing is it puts pressure on the media. The media can get away with looking biased, but they can't get away with looking oblivious. And when you have people that are saying, wait a second, there's 4 candidates on my ballot, why are there 2 candidates on my newspaper? At some point, the media has to start to change. They have to start to cover people. And the more people we have to run, if you have, say, 20 people running in a state, and the media pretends that that's not happening, a particular newspaper pretends that's not happening, then the newspaper starts to look silly. So it puts that pressure. So I really do think that as long as somebody's willing to at least fill out the questionnaires, to answer the questions that come from the media, then that person should run. Even if you're not willing to go door to door or anything, if you're willing to do that much, I really think that's a big benefit to the cause of liberty.
And I think that's a great perspective on it. What I'm really recommending, and what I'm seeing as I talk to people from throughout the state of Indiana, where we have pretty solid ballot access as compared to a state where ballot access might be challenging, that can be an issue to determine whether you're trying to fill the ballots or focus on specific candidates as well. It seems to be kind of a question that specific candidates and specific locations need to address to find the best answer for their areas.
Absolutely.
Now, let's shift gears here a little bit. One of the things that really intrigues me as I follow you on the internet is your work with education. Now, outside of the party, you work in education, correct?
I do. I work in free market. I mean, I work in the free market portion of education. Everything we do is entirely separate from government. We have a very strict policy that we don't seek or accept any government contracts. So everything we do is responsive to the free market. And that means that sometimes, you don't have the advantage of some of your competitors, but it also means that you're kind of forced to develop the kind of advantages that the government can't buy. I mean, the government can buy you access, but they can't buy you innovation. They can't make you come up with a good idea. They can't give somebody a good idea. You can hand any company $100 billion. It's not going to automatically turn into a good idea. And so we are a business that very much, we're an entrepreneurial business. You'll see everything we do changes constantly. We find constant adjustments, improvements, whether it's on our apps, we design, vocabulary and similar apps. We change the algorithms in there all the time, adjusting those, finding ways to perfect them. Whether it's the way that we run our classes, we have very unusual classes. They're individualized education that happens in a group setting. We're constantly finding ways to improve those. Whether we're switching from primarily offline, as we were about 3 years ago, to almost entirely online, as we are now. All of those changes are very much. We're very much a constantly innovating entrepreneurial organization, and it's really shown me the extent to which free market solutions in education are so much more effective than the coercive market, than the public sector solutions. And I use solutions kind of.
Oh yeah, as somebody who's has some experience as an educational entrepreneur and also as a teacher in the government school systems. On one hand, it's an exciting time to be in education. There's a lot of innovation, but there's also a bitter resistance on the part of the status quo. Do you have any thoughts on how education is going to evolve from the current, or at least when we think about traditional public schools, this Prussian model to maybe a more student-centered or maybe some unforeseen outcome? Where are we headed with education, and how do we get past the obstacle of the status quo?
It's a really interesting question, because the default assumption now is that the way to get educated is that you need to go to school. But when you really sit down with most adults and say, what in school did you find the most useless? And most adults will say, well, the lectures that were kind of pointless were not that good, and I didn't like having to do a bunch of busy work at home. But then if you ask the same adults, what do you think is most necessary in education? They'll be like, oh, lectures and homework. Now, what we've done in my business is that we don't do lectures, and we don't really do any homework either. The closer we get to homework is our apps, which most kids kind of treat more as games than as actual homework. We're seeing that kind of innovation happening not just in our business, but in so many different areas. More and more people are realizing that with homeschooling, you can get so much more done so much more quickly. The homeschoolers that we work with spend about, at home, 2 to 3 hours a day on academics, say 15 to 20 hours a week on academics. The students in either government regulated private schools or in public schools spend about the same amount of time having their kids do academics at home, through homework. The difference is that it's just so miserable, because parents know that the homework is busy work. The kids know that the homework is busy work. And so the parents are sitting there, trying to convince the kid of something that they themselves don't really believe. The level of positivity that I see from my homeschool kids and parents, that they're working together, learning so much interesting stuff, they're usually 2 or 3 grade levels ahead, has shown that even something like homeschooling, which is essentially, if you think about homeschooling, it's just amateurs doing teaching. They're not professionals. They don't have a lot of practice. It's their first time doing it ever, And they're still doing a much better job of it. And as that support system continues to grow, as we get rid of the regulations that block it, as we get rid of some of these truancy laws that get in the way of private sector education, as we move away from that model, I don't even think that we're going to have to. I don't think that we're going to have to officially shut down public schools. I think that just people are going to stop going to them because there'll be so many better options, some of which are free, some of which are expensive, some of which are very low cost, some of which are medium cost. Wherever you are in that spectrum, you're going to find something that works well for you.
One of the things that fascinates me about education, and I got into teaching later in life, and I was one of these people who I actually did not enjoy school.
Mm-hmm.
And the funny thing about it that is the majority of people I know did not enjoy school. But it is an institution that is beyond reproach.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot criticize education. You cannot dare to talk about reducing funding. It's one of those things to really propose change in education. And I think it's akin to the Stockholm syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen a group of people who were forced through coercion to be involved in something so quick to defend their oppressors, and I'm baffled by it.
And it's true. It is a political thing. I mean, if you actually look at the content inside of many school systems, the way that history is taught, the amount of just pure propaganda that's in there is so extreme that we've actually stopped using any of the history textbooks from Pearson's or any of those places. We actually in our business we use the Cambridge textbooks. We feel like they're not going to have the same biases. They're going to come from a different perspective. These are tenured professors who can't be fired, so they're going to tell the truth. It is interesting how far that bias really penetrates.
Yeah, the Cambridge stuff is fantastic. I recently left an organization that was doing online tutoring for government schools, Department of Defense schools, and places like this. They were doing online tutoring, and one of the reasons I left them is that not only did they forbid us to talk about Wikipedia, which I kind of understand that, but when they forbid us from having students do Google search, it told me right then and there they had absolutely no intention of being real about where education is in 2017.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, let's shift gears here a little bit. You are going to be joining us here in beautiful Evansville, Indiana, on the banks of the Ohio in the first weekend of May for our state convention. What can people expect? What will you be talking about? What's going to be on your agenda for the convention this year?
A big thing that I've been focusing on in many of my recent many of my recent speeches, and almost certainly will be doing the same in May, is showing that there are often very direct paths to liberty, and that a lot of the supposed stepping stones that people add in there are not actually stepping stones; they're just impediments. To use a real, without giving too much away, to use just a really simple example, one of the common things in free market education is that people say, well, a good way to get to free market education is to start off with vouchers. Now, having seen what actually happened with vouchers, it just means that now you're going to have very, very large businesses dependent on vouchers. You're going to take away any incentive to lower the price. I mean, if you get a $10,000 voucher, why make a $9,000 school? You're going to take away any incentive to have that kind of mass level innovation. You're still going to keep in all the regulation. You're still going to say a school has to do this and this and this and this, and this and this and this and this are going to be specifically the things that prevent quality innovation. They're specifically the things that get in the way of just good ideas. So when you create that, you're going to basically create a highly regulated system, and you're going to replace teachers' unions with big corporate lobbyists. I'm not sure that either one of those groups is going to be the one that we really want shaping the future of this country. So I'm going to be talking about ways, in education and other ways in which we can actually not get caught up in these intermediate stumbling blocks that nobody ever seems to get past. I don't know of any single voucher area that has become a pure free market area, and vouchers have happened in many cities so far. It hasn't worked yet. And I'm going to talk about how do we actually make that direct shift? How do we go to a true free market in many different areas? And I hope that people can start to see that it's a lot easier to do this stuff than people think it is. It's very hard to do it in these other ways, where you first build a giant system and then take that whole new giant system down. But actual free market education, actual free market in other areas is much, much simpler. And I think that people will be excited to hear some of these ideas.
Well, I know I certainly am. Here in the state of Indiana, I was very active and even was part of a group that attempted to put together a charter school with libertarian foundations. And what we found is in about a year's time, what started as these grassroots organizations putting together charter schools quickly became a handful of corporate organizations that had the means to abide by the regulations put forth by the state. So I can definitely relate to that. And even when it comes to cannabis legalization, here in Indiana, just yesterday we passed a a cannabis oil ordinance, which in my opinion is only going to postpone true legalization. We're allowing a CBD-based oil, which I get that it's a step in the right direction, but it's really not providing the real medicine. And I think that this might be an opportunity as well for us to talk about getting beyond these the road stops to liberty.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, before we wrap it up, do you have any questions for me? Can I tell you anything about Evansville, Indiana?
Well, I've never actually been to Evansville, so to me, I'm going to be totally new there. So I guess if I was going to ask something, what's at least one thing that while I'm there I should try to check out or learn about?
Let's see. There is, and I know this only because I'm involved with an organization. They have an LC, a landing craft ship that's on the banks of the Ohio. Now, me being a history guy, this is where I'm going to go. And if I have a few minutes to sneak away, is go check out the restored landing craft that's a few miles down the river. Now, some other people are probably going to tell you to hit the casino. I consider myself as a taxpayer and enough of gaming in my life, but there is a wonderful casino attached to there, and the food in southern Indiana is worth checking out. There's several great restaurants in the area, and maybe we'll have a chance to get together and check out one of those places while you're visiting.
Absolutely.
So if people want to know more about you in the capacity as the vice chair, where would you want to send them to either be in touch or to learn more about your role as the vice chair of the Libertarian
Party?
Party?
About my role as the vice chair, realistically, the best thing to do is go to lp.org. Any official releases that I have over there come out, on lp.org. If you want to learn more about my Senate run coming up in 2018, the place for that would be votevohra.com. And so those are the two places to see really get the central idea of what I'm doing politically.
VoteVohra.com. Now, if we want to know about your the education business, where can we learn more about that?
See what we're doing in free market education right now? You would go to vohramethod.com.
The Vohra method. Okay. Well, thanks so much for joining us today. We look forward to you joining us again. Will you come back and see us as you get a little closer to your Senate run or more things come up in the course of the year?
I'd love to.
Okay. Well, Arvin, again, we're looking forward to seeing you at the LPIN convention in the month of May. And until then, I'll see you on the computer. All right. Thanks so much to Arvin Vohra. Just a preview of what you can expect to see from Arvin at our state convention in Evansville coming up. Okay, the Indiana Libertarian Update returns next week with Donald Rainwater. Donald's making waves in Hamilton County. He recently announced the formation of an exploratory committee in anticipation of a 2018 bid for public office. We'll find out more about Donald and his vision for the political future in next week's edition of the Indiana Libertarian Update. If you have a news story, event, or meeting you want to pass along, send us a message via Facebook or drop me an email. That's jsipe@sipesociety.com. I get very little feedback on what we do here at Indiana Libertarian Update, so I don't know if people are enjoying it or not. Do you like what you see? Do you want to see something different? Please let me know. If you have a news story or a topic you want me to cover, perhaps you'd like to come on the Indiana Libertarian Update and share some of your views about what's happening with libertarianism in the state of Indiana, just drop me a line and I'd love to have you on. Okay, the Indiana Libertarian Update is a production of sipesociety.com. Sipe Society is your one-man education and online content consultant. Check it out. We are going to be offering some advertising opportunities with the Indiana Libertarian Update coming soon. For the last 4 sessions, we have had in excess of 1,000 views. And we want to thank you, the Indiana Libertarian Update viewer, for making that a possibility. And if you would like to reach this audience, drop me a line and we can talk about some ways to make that happen. Okay, until next time, I'm Jason Sipe, and I'll see you on the computer.